again, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Burlingame. It's a small-town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. This is Mark Lucchese, also known as Mark at the Mic, and for the month of March, we are honoring a tribute to women in business, and it's my pleasure to have Rachel Groffman as my guest today. Rachel has been a hairstylist for 47 years, 40 years in Burlingame. Along the way, she has owned and operated 2 salons, one of them being Burlingame's first complete day spa, featuring hairstyling, coloring, manis, pedis, facials, massages, herbal body wraps, and waxing. And if you are a lucky lady or a mom, lunch would be brought in with long stem roses. Rachel now splits her time living in Palm Springs and comes up to Burlingame to work a couple of times a month to meet her clients at the UK Salon on Burlingame Avenue. And now my conversation with Rachel Groffman. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark.
And Henry, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Henry.
He's in a cast.
He's in a cast.
What happened?
He broke his leg. He was so excited to see my daughter that he fell off the couch.
And was this like early in the day or something?
9:30 at night.
Wow.
Very scary. Blood-curdling scream.
At least your daughter was around, though, to help you. So what'd you do, race off to emergency?
She drove the car, and we were there within 15 minutes of it happening.
Yeah. Gosh.
So,
How long was it, when you were there, how long were you waiting around before they got her all fixed up and everything?
Well,
him. Him.
He had to stay overnight.
He did?
Oh, yeah, because they had to anesthetize him so that they could set it.
Right. So was it an hour before you were waiting in the waiting room?
It was about half an hour.
Half an hour. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can hear Henry in the background. It's great.
Would you rather not?
No. I think it's terrific.
Okay.
Man's best friend.
There you go.
Okay. All right. I usually open up my shows with fun facts about folks.
Okay.
It kind of loosens everything up and relaxes us and all that. And I have 3 interesting fun facts about you.
Uh-oh.
Which I'd like to share with our listeners, okay? All right.
Are they the good facts or the...
They're good. Yeah,
okay.
They're good. So you're an officiant at weddings?
Yes, I am.
How many weddings have you done?
So far, I've done 3.
3. Great. And how long have you been an officiant?
About a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
And I love it. It is the best.
And you got that going online or something like that?
Well, yes.
All right.
I am a minister in the Universal Life Church.
Yeah. What's the most memorable, of the 3, what's the most memorable wedding you've done?
Well, you know which one that is. That was my very first one, of course, was your son's. And what made that one so special is that I saw them falling in love.
Yeah, you watched the whole thing, right?
I watched it.
That would be Adrian Kwok Lundy up in Cameron, right?
Right,
My
and
son.
Estelle Lucchese.
Yeah, and Estelle, yes, about 6 months old now, I think.
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay,
right.
Cool. The other thing is, I have a fun fact too, is that you were an aerobics teacher in the 80s?
Yes, I was.
A kind of a spin-off of Jane Fonda and Richard Simmons, or what?
Exactly. It was back in those days when we wore leg warmers.
Yeah.
And we were doing the disco moves.
Where were you doing
music.
this?
This was at Fitness USA up in Daly City.
Okay.
And the way I got the job was most interesting because I kept bothering the manager of the club. When are you going to hire me? When are you going to hire me? And one day she said, well, can you cut my bangs? I said, sure.
So you were doing hairstyling at that time?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So this was, I was dating... it was right before I met Jackie's father because I met him in my aerobics class. But the funny thing is I was cutting her bangs and I paused right in the middle of her forehead. And I said, now tell me before I start cutting, when are you going to hire me?
So
I started the week after.
That's sort of a form of blackmail or something, or what?
Well, it was a little coercion, but come on. Some people need a little push.
A little push. That's good. Okay. And you have this passion, fun fact 3, you have this passion about France. You go to France once a year?
At least once a year.
At least. So sometimes you go more than once?
Yes.
How long has this been going on for?
Probably almost 40 years.
What? 40 years?
Well, it started in 1987 was my first trip to France.
Okay. Do you typically stay at different regions of France, or is there some place you always like to go to and then you go from there?
I have a friend who was a hairstylist who I met at a symposium for hair, and we became friends. He owned a salon in Paris, and we kind of became sister salons, and we would go back and forth and visit each other's salons.
Right.
Now, he would come over much more often, but when I would go over there, we would stay with each other. Like he would stay here at my house and I would go and stay at his place. And then he bought another apartment. So now I have my own apartment in Paris when I go.
Oh,
so it's a freebie.
It's a freebie. Wow.
Yes. And then through him, we have met each other's families because that's been going on now for 25 years, I think. And so now, when I go there, for example, I was invited to his mother's 90th birthday party up in Normandy.
Wow.
And he's come down to Monterey with me. He's been down to Palm Springs, to my home down there. We've been up to the wine country.
Yeah.
He's done Thanksgiving with my family. So we've really had this complete exchange of culture.
Terrific. That's a pretty good fun fact.
It's fun.
40 years.
Yes, and I've been at least 40 times.
Man. So obviously you speak fluent French.
I do.
Yeah.
Not as well as my daughter, though.
Okay, we'll get to that maybe, all right? But in the meantime, let's share some Burlingame memories because like I said in the opener, you have been a hairstylist for 47 years?
Yes.
40 years here in Burlingame.
40 years, 1985.
85. So you've seen many changes over the years.
A lot.
Yeah. So, but what I'd like to know is what brought you to Burlingame?
A job. I was working in Foster City at a salon called the Crystal Palace, and I decided I wanted to be in Burlingame where there was more action going on.
We're just taking care of Henry right now, folks. We can, there we go, we're back. All right.
Okay.
Okay, we've got Henry back. So what was the salon? Can you share that with us?
The salon that I worked at?
Yeah, no, the one that you came to work for in Burlingame.
Right. Okay, I worked at Sheer Ecstasy, which was located at 401A Chapin. And that was downstairs. Let's see, now it is a Pilates studio. But it was a hair salon, and it was a couple of hair salons, different owners after that.
So, wait a minute, 401 Chapin?
Yes.
Okay, is that down the street from Ollie Stone's or what? No.
It's right on the corner. It's right where...
I know where it is.
Right.
Yes.
The wooden building.
It's across the street from this library.
Exactly. There you
right.
are.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the first shop you've worked at?
In Burlingame.
In Burlingame.
Yes.
I know you had a couple of where you owned your own shops. How many other shops did you work for in Burlingame?
I worked for a couple. The best salon I worked at was Rubens, by far.
And Ruben was upstairs
he was
Primrose?
Yes, he was upstairs right above All That Glitters.
Yeah.
And
she's since gone to Broadway now.
She's on Broadway, yeah. Isabel. And Rubens was upstairs, and he'd been there for a long time, and that was by far the best salon I worked at.
After Rubens, where did you go?
That's when I opened my own salon.
You did. So you worked like basically two salons, Sheer Ecstasy, Rubens, and then you opened your own place.
Correct. Where
was that? And that was called Rachel and Company?
Rachel and Co.
Oh, Rachel and Co.
Yes, I had. Well, it's C-O.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Is it co? Is it company? What's easier?
Yeah, all right.
But I just wish I had done that for my email because company is so long and spelled out. But I just got so busy.
Where was the shop located?
The shop was at 256 Lorton.
And what's there now?
Well, the interesting thing is I sold that salon to a wonderful woman who made it even more successful, which is good. And then she sold it to two people that I had actually hired. And now it's called Reconnect.
So it's still a salon?
It is still a salon.
What year was that when you sold that one?
Let's see, that was 2007.
Okay.
And then immediately I started another salon, but it was not a day spa.
Okay.
And so the first salon was a day spa.
The first one was the day spa.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I have a couple of questions about that in a minute, all right? But first I want to go back to Burlingame Avenue. You're now at the UK.
I'm at
Hair Salon.
The UK Hair Salon.
Not UK Salon, like I said in the intro.
Exactly.
UK Hair Salon, folks. And Jeff is, the owner of that?
Oh, my gosh, yes. He's been there forever.
He's terrific, yeah. All right, so we're over there at the UK Hair Salon. let's test your memory. What was before the UK hair salon?
At that same location, Wanda's hair salon.
Wanda's, that's right. Wanda's,
okay?
Yeah.
And Wanda, sometimes I think when God said, "Let there be light," she flipped the switch. So,
really?
Well, she was just an old-time hairstylist.
Yeah.
And with the hair dryers and teasing.
Did she have stylists working for her at that time? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Many.
Yeah. So Wanda's was where... before the UK hair salon.
Correct.
Right. So if I'm standing on Burlingame Avenue, I'm looking at Alana's is next door.
Correct.
What was before Alana's?
Oh, Bill's Cafe.
Bill's Cafe.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was like a real greasy spoon, right?
Oh, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
It was delicious.
It was great.
Oh, God.
Was there a bill? Do you know if there was a bill?
I think there was.
Okay.
I think there was.
Okay. But you never met him, like?
I never met him.
All right. And then next to you, going the other way towards... Oh, the smoke shop used to be nestled in there somewhere.
Well, the smoke shop
was on the corner.
It was on the corner, but now where the cigar store is now used to be a barber shop, and you could also send packages
from there.
Yes.
So there was a barber shop, but next to Wanda's hair salon is what you're saying?
No, it was Wanda's, and then Alana's.
Okay.
I mean, excuse me, it was Wanda's, then Bill's.
Yeah.
And then right next to that was the barbershop.
Wow. Okay. How about some more memories of Burlingame Avenue? I'm going to throw some names out to you and see if you remember them or not. You may not have gotten here by then. On the corners, the four corners of Primrose and Burlingame Avenue were Tolls. Right?
I remember Tolls. Olive sandwiches on Fridays.
Is that what it was?
Oh, yes.
So Al was running it then, or was
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And Levy Brothers
That was gone.
That was gone. So that was Crosby Commons, I think.
It became. They were under construction.
Right. Okay. Also on the corner was the smoke shop.
Well, don't forget McWhorter's stationery store, and that was before Gap Kids.
Okay, and that was Bennett Pharmacy before that. That's my younger time.
Okay.
So, what was that called? McWhorter's? McWhorter's. I don't remember that at all.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
Wow. Okay, so we had the smoke shop, McWhorter's, Levy Brothers, which went to the Crosby Commons and Tolls, right?
Yes.
Up the street from you, do you remember the Bit of England?
I remember the Bit. We used to call it just the Bit.
The Bit, yeah, but you didn't drink, so you don't go there.
Oh, that doesn't mean I didn't go there and enjoy their burgers. Okay. Come on, Mark, they were great. It was so dark.
Yeah.
You know?
Right, it was terrific.
Oh, yeah.
And then farther down, going the other way towards the train station was another great place, La Piñata.
La Piñata was a blast.
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't that great?
Yeah, it was. Sorry to see them go.
Oh, I miss them still.
Yeah. And for clothing, I guess Morning Glory must have been around.
Oh, Morning Glory's always
and still
been
going
there.
strong.
Oh, yeah.
Girls are still going
what
strong.
What a great businesswoman.
Yeah, I know, she's terrific.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Paulette Monroe.
Yes.
And what about Robert Gates? Was that still on the avenue?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So if I had a magic wand and I could wave it or give it to you to wave, what business would you bring back if you could? Is there any favorites that you have from way back then or no longer around?
Well, La Piñata was wonderful. Electric Avenue was great.
Everybody says Electric Avenue. I don't remember a thing about it.
You're not, well, you weren't young enough.
You're right.
No, they had Halloween masks at Halloween. They had all kinds of holiday stuff. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was for the young kids
Right.
mostly. I miss the Burberry store. That was very personal before Burberry became such a brand.
So Burberry is a clothing store?
It was a clothing store.
Men and women or just women?
It was just women. And of course now, it's such a big brand. But they had a little store right on the avenue.
Wow.
Between Lorton and California Drive. It was a fabulous store. And
oh, we hear Henry in the background. Okay, Rachel, we took a little Henry break there, and we're back.
Okay.
And I'm sure Henry's quite pleased that you took him outside for a minute. Sure. Anyway, we left off with Burberry, and that was a clothing store, you said,
yes.
for women, right? Okay. What other little charming things can you tell me about Burlingame over your 40 years here as a small town?
Okay. I think, first of all, I just really remember the police presence, which, could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you're looking at it. But, the police were always walking around the neighborhood, and there was always Jerry, the cop on the beat. He was always driving around. He was walking around. Everyone knew him.
Is that that was his name,
that
Jerry?
Was his name, Jerry.
That's terrific.
And, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
And, again, depending on which side of the law you were on, but,
right.
It was nice and it was a safe feeling. And I could have my daughter, run around the corner to the ice cream store and not have to worry about things with her.
Right.
And the other memory...
Is that when you were working at Reuben's
Well, Jerry was there for a long time.
But were you working for Reuben at the time or no? At the time,
but also when I had my own salon. There was actually a man that came in and harassed me one day. And the next day, I called the police to report it, and they said, well, he didn't do anything, so we can't do anything. So I waited till Jerry came and went to the bagel store next door, and I went over and I said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the next time the guy walked down the street, he was on the other side of Lorton. I don't know what was said or if anything was said.
It sounds like it got taken care of.
It was nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a small community
where
people know you.
Right.
I'll tell you another cute story with my daughter. Do you remember Piazza Italia?
Yeah.
The two Italian?
Yes. That was Roberta.
And Mina. Mina and Roberta.
Yeah.
And Roberta didn't have any children, and she adored Jackie. And Jackie was about 4 years old at the time. I would call her up. I was working upstairs right above them pretty much. And I would call up Roberta and I'd say, okay, Jackie's on her way down. And Jackie would run down the stairs and out of the building and down 2 doorways and into Piazza Italia. And Roberta would be on the phone still with me and she'd say, okay, here she is. And then, we'd hang up and Jackie would stay down there for a while. And
that was a way of you guys making sure that she got from the top to the bottom to Roberta. That's great.
Yeah. And I would be with clients and of course everybody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And so one day I went in to pick Jackie up from Piazza Italia, and there she was with Roberta at the stove on a chair, stirring the gnocchi, learning how to cook them. And it was just such a small town.
That is so old school, isn't it?
It was
and
great.
That's Roberta. I can just see her doing that.
Oh, she's so warm. Yeah. Such a kind woman.
She's gone back to Italy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Had a tough time. Her husband passed away suddenly.
I know, Kevin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tough. Okay, can you share a couple other memories?
Well, La Piñata was so much fun.
Yeah.
And especially on a Friday after work.
Right.
And a lot of times what I would do is if I had clients going over to La Piñata, particularly the ones that like to sit at the bar, I could call the bartender up and I would say, there's a gentleman sitting at the bar. He's just come in for a haircut, but would you mind if I could just give you my credit card and would you send him a beer?
Wow, isn't that great?
And
that
it was just
cool.
fun. And it was like that place where just people, even if they didn't know your name, they remembered how you looked.
Yeah, that's
to
cool.
say hi. And
all right. Okay, good. Before your shops, you have worked for people in Burlingame.
Yes.
How many different places, more or less?
Probably about 4. The 2 main ones we've already talked about.
Yeah.
The others aren't. It was just a very short time.
Got it. So you opened a couple of shops, but the big one was the day spa.
Right.
The first one in Burlingame.
It was Rachel & Co.
Yeah.
Burlingame's first complete day spa.
And to do all of the things that you did, all of the functions at the place that you offered, you must have had quite a few people working for you.
At one point, we had 18.
18. So you're doing payroll, you're doing scheduling, you're doing all of that on your own?
All before computer.
Yeah, I know, handwritten.
All manually.
Right. Yeah.
It was not fun.
And back in the day, how often did somebody get a check? I mean, did you have to write weekly checks or every
2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks, right. So were you doing that at the store or were you taking that stuff home or what?
A little bit of both.
Yeah. And that went for what, about 10 years?
That was 9.5 years.
9.5 years. And where was that location?
256 Lorton.
Okay. And it was...
It was 2 floors. We started out only as 1 floor, about 1,200 square feet. And within 6 months, business really was booming. And so we moved upstairs as well. So that was another 800 square feet.
So can you tell me how you developed the first day spa in Burlingame? What gave you that idea?
Well, I took 6 months off and I was living back in Virginia. for a very short time, and I was doing makeup back there. And I happened to go into a salon to have my nails done, and it actually turned out to be a day spa. And as the woman, she was the owner, and she was doing my nails, and I saw her having lunch brought in for someone. And we were talking about all of the services and everything, and she was so happy. And I thought, I'm going to do that someday. That's my dream, is to have a day spa where somebody could come and be totally pampered all day.
Right.
And leave feeling fabulous.
Yeah.
And so, it's those little things. And somehow...
So you stayed in Virginia for a while, then went back with that idea?
Just 6 months.
And did it...
And I came back here and I started...
Found a location?
Doing hair. And I was, came to Burlingame and then was at Rubens. And at Rubens, I rented 2 chairs and I had an assistant. Mm-hmm. And we just, one day... Between the two of us, we had 6 clients.
Right.
And I looked at my assistant, Anna Sandoval, who used to work at Molly Stone's
right.
on her days off.
Yes, man.
I know, what a worker, huh?
Yeah.
And I just said, Anna, we need to have a shop.
Yeah. And so you went out searching, or you had somebody look for it?
The next weekend, I happened to be at the House of Bagels.
Yeah.
Getting bagels for Jackie and myself, and I saw... the space next door for rent.
And that started it.
And it's, things kind of start to line up.
Yeah.
Right?
So you spent about 9.5 years there?
Yes.
Okay. And then it just got to be too much, I guess, or what?
It was too much.
Yeah.
It was just too much. And, Jackie was in high school, and I really just didn't want that level of responsibility anymore.
Right.
So I sold it to a lovely woman who made it even a bigger salon, not bigger in terms of space-wise, but bigger in terms of increasing the business. And then I had hired, one of the last things I did was I hired 2 assistants, Paul and Lang, and they left to go work up at Vidal Sassoon's in San Francisco. Then they came back and worked for Karen at what became Plum Studios after Rachel & Co., and then they purchased it from her, and they're still there at 256 Lorton. Reconnect. It's a lovely salon. They're doing a great business.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So it's still a salon.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you sold the big salon to the ladies, right?
Right.
And then did you turn around and open up the small salon right away? Or was
I did.
You did.
I stayed 6 months at the salon that had been Rachel & Co. And then so that the transition could be smooth for them.
Right.
And then I opened up a second location, Rachel & Co. That was at 341 Primrose.
Right.
And that was smaller. It was 5 chairs. And we just had hairstyling. And it was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was great.
And so how long were you at that one?
10.5 years.
So altogether, about 20 years.
It was 20 years of being an owner.
Of owner.
Right.
And you said that's it. Okay.
That's it.
All right. So let's go backwards for a minute. How did you even get into this whole hairstyling thing to begin with?
Okay, well, I went to
Mercy High School.
Mercy High School,
in
born
San
and raised.
Mateo.
No,
San Francisco.
Yes,
sorry.
I was born and raised in San Francisco.
Right.
Sunset girl. Went to Mercy High School.
Yeah,
and then I went to San Francisco State. I wanted to be a nurse.
Okay.
I went in the summer. I had gone one summer to Hawaii and had gone backpacking. Did another year of school at State, and then I went to Hawaii for the whole summer. And
so you must have been about 19 or 20, 18?
20-ish.
Yeah.
21-ish.
Right.
And I thought, let's see, nursing school, the beach. Nursing school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know who won this one.
Well, yeah. Right. So I lived in Hawaii. And I had to find a place to live, and I had some roommates, and they turned out to be hairstylists. Now, they weren't the sharpest knives in the drawer.
Right.
Nice people, nice guys.
Yep.
And I thought, well, listen, if they can do that, I had to find a job.
Yep.
Instead of just waiting tables. I had to find some kind of a career. And I thought, I could learn how to do hair and put myself through nursing school. But then, it's just like I was guided basically into, having a day spa it's just happenstance that the space I've always wanted on Primrose came available. So, certain things just kind of line up. And
so did you go to a beauty college or a cosmetology school or something like that?
I went to a beauty college in Hawaii.
You did?
And I got a grant, I got a student grant, and I got a loan, which was paid back.
Right.
And, I came out a hairstylist. I got a job. I started working.
In Hawaii?
Hawaii.
Yeah. And how long did you spend over there doing that?
About 2 years.
Yeah. And
2
then you
years,
came back
3 years. Then I came back here.
Yeah.
And I took about 2 years off.
Right.
Lived in Virginia for 6 months. And decided, I really love doing hair, and that's what I'm going to do.
So how did you end up in Burlingame?
Well, I was working briefly in Foster City in a salon, and I just felt very far removed. I wanted to be kind of where it was a little more happening.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned La Piñata. I mean, Burlingame Avenue was just thriving at the time.
Yeah.
And so this was 1985. So here I came.
Yeah. So did you see an ad in the paper or something like that, or what?
You know what? I asked one of my sales consultants for the distributor.
Yeah.
Do you know of any? That was how I always found my jobs.
Right.
Do you know of any place that's available?
And they said sheer ecstasy or something like that?
Yeah, they're looking for somebody, and they're nice people, and why don't you try there?
Wow. Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And here you are 40 years later, right?
Oh, my goodness. I can't believe it.
Can we talk about, well, first of all, let's get clarification here. What's the difference between a hairstylist, a hairdresser, a beautician, cosmetologist? What's the deal?
I could say age.
Yeah.
Because when I came out of school, Mark, they called us beauty operators, and I was called Miss Rachel.
Yeah. Would have Wanda been
a beauty operator all the way?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So there's no difference.
There isn't.
It's just, we're trying to lift up the profession.
Yeah. So the name changes with whatever, right?
Right. And
time.
With the times. And also, the difference with a barber is the training, the basic training. And barbers are also licensed to shave.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? We aren't.
Right. Could you do barbering work, though, without shaving somebody?
I can do haircuts. Okay. I can do color. I can do perms.
Okay.
But I cannot shave anyone.
Right.
And I'm sure that they could not wax or tweeze or do facials or do manicures or pedicures.
Okay. Yeah, probably not. All right. At least I know what a barber and a hairdresser is and all of that now, right? Over the years, you've probably seen a lot of trends come and go.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
I'm going to admit to the world today that probably my favorite was the big hair of the 80s, right? The Farrah Fawcett look and the long hair and wild looking and all that. And I loved it. What kind of trends are happening now? And tell me about some of the other trends. Dorothy Hamill, the short haircut.
The short wedge.
She was the ice. That's what they called that, the wedge?
Yes, it was a wedge.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And, back in those days, everything had a name. It was like the page boy, the bob, I'm going to date myself now. The Italian top was the way we set hair.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm dating myself because who does sets now?
Right.
But anyway, so we had all of these names for things. And now, of course, the big trend is longer hair from just below the shoulder length to maybe bra length.
Yeah.
Layers. And the fringe now is called curtain bangs. But what that really dates to is the 1980s with Linda Evans and Dynasty.
Dynasty, right. She had the bangs.
Those kind of bangs with the wings.
Right. And that's coming back?
It's coming back.
Okay. So in the 80s, there was no social media.
No.
Right. Would women bring in magazines like fashion magazines or pictures of whoever and say, can you make me look like her?
Right, exactly. And they would, and also in the hair salon, we had books. So we might have hairstyles for the mature women.
Yeah.
And it would be like a hardbound book. Or sometimes stylists, we would learn in school, to create these lookbooks.
Right.
And because it wasn't also, hairstylists weren't necessarily branding themselves and showing their own personal work. It just wasn't like that.
What's a mature woman?
Well, in those days, it was over 30.
Seriously?
Well, it was more gray hair.
Yeah, okay, gray hair.
And we had books for children and for men.
Yeah. And how did you work with the gray hair? Did that become blue hair?
Well, the gray hair became blue back in those days because we had a blue rinse that we would put on the hair.
Intentionally
to take out the yellow.
I always thought that these ladies went to the salon for a tint or something, but because of the hair or whatever, it just turned blue on them.
No.
It was intentional.
We didn't want it to be blue. It just took on a little bit too much of a rinse, but it was better than yellow.
Okay. But you do use social media today, I bet, huh?
Yes.
Right. TikTok and Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
And
People come in with their phones and they'll say, can you do this with my hair?
Right. What's the biggest mistake people make when it comes to their hair?
The biggest mistake I think that people make is misjudging their hair and its capabilities. Because, for example, just the other day, I had a woman come in and she had very fine, very thin hair. And she wanted to create a kind of a bob around the chin length, maybe a little longer. And she wanted to have layers. And she wanted to look so nice and so full, and she wanted to have bangs, and she wanted this and that. And I just said to her, your hair won't do it. So what I try and do, Mark, is particularly when a new client comes in, I will analyze their facial shape, and we talk about it. The ratio of forehead to eyes to nose, nose to chin, their neck, the length of the neck, the shoulders, how they carry themselves, their personal fashion expression. Because somebody might be very dramatic in their fashion expression.
Right.
So I'm not going to give them something that's very plain.
Yeah.
They're going to want to have something and kind of push the edge a little bit. But then I'm also, if I have someone that comes in that's very tailored, I'm not going to give them something, that might have a little asymmetry.
So a lady could spend a few hours there with you, I would imagine. A couple of weeks ago, the Academy Awards were on, right?
Right.
And I'm watching them with Kathy, my wife, and she said, oh, look, so-and-so's wearing extensions.
Right.
And, of course, I wanted to sound intelligent and hip. And I said, oh, yeah, look at that, extensions. And what are extensions?
Okay. Extensions, probably most women in Hollywood or that you see in the movies are wearing extensions. And what it does is it can either add fullness to the hair, it can fill in a thinness, like if you have maybe a balding area, or it adds length. And there are ways that they're attached to the hair strands. It can either be by thread, with kind of a plastic clip, with a comb that might just stick in the hair, and it also can be glued in with a special type of glue that will not destroy the hair. They also are not permanent, in case you were going to ask that question.
I was going to ask that, right. So they're temporary.
They're temporary. They need to be refreshed.
Yeah, like a tune-up every so often.
Maybe every month or every 6 weeks, and they need to... and you can remove them.
Right. So if you didn't like them, you could remove them.
Or just once your own hair gets to be a certain length.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
And I can tell you, we have a gal at the salon at UK Hair. Her name is Rochelle. She owns a salon in Lake Tahoe. She comes down every 5 weeks, and she does extensions. She is the best. She does all types. And it involves taking wefts of hair, which is like a section of hair that may have this comb or may need to be threaded in. And it's painstaking work. But she's the best I've ever seen in the business.
What's the trend right now for hair styles or hair color? Is there a particular hair color that everybody wants to be a blonde or brunette or redhead or short hair, long hair? Is there a certain trend going on right now?
Most women want to cover their gray.
Really? So
yes.
Are you running into any women that just want to let it go gray?
I am. And, there's nothing wrong with allowing the hair to go gray.
Right.
It can look very nice. The issue is, and this is generally speaking, okay, should a woman or a man allow their hair to go gray, they generally will look older by about 10 years than if they color it.
Yeah.
That's not an absolute.
Right.
So when I have clients that want to go gray, we talk about it and we say, are you prepared for that?
Yeah.
And it's a choice. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
At all. It's really listening to your client.
Yep.
And finding out what do they want, what's best for them. Am I going to give them a style that enhances their bone structure? Brings out their beautiful cheekbones, enhances the color. Is it going to enhance their eyes or their skin tone? What is in it for them?
Yeah. Okay.
All geared to them.
So you said it's a color that will cover the grays.
Correct.
Okay, but seriously, is there a certain color that dominates one over the other? I mean, are you doing... No.
It's everything.
It is. Okay, that's interesting. All right.
We've had some years, for example, Mark, where we've done a lot with fantasy colors. There was a time in the 90s where women wore their hair more burgundy red, and that was a huge fashion statement. And particularly Asian women wore it fabulously. And also adding in dark purple streaks into their hair.
Right. I see a lot of ladies or young women with the red, blue, and I mean, it looks pretty cool.
It's fun. It's what we call a fantasy.
Right.
And now we do it, you might see it with a young child that has crazy hair day at school for fun, right? And mom will spray in different colors in their hair and it'll wash right out. Or maybe for Halloween, somebody's doing it. But now it is just as the blue nail polish or green nail polish is trendy, so is having a little bit of things, colors. And as conservative as some of my clients can be with their hair, we actually had this thing that we used to call a pinkaboo. And I would take during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. In October, we would, in the back of the hair, take a certain section, maybe 2 inches wide, and we'd weave some bright pink through it so that they could either hide it or style their hair where you could see it.
Yeah.
And the cost was $25, which in turn, the deal was they had to donate to the breast cancer charity of their choice.
Yeah, that's great.
It was fun.
I first learned about that from your client, longtime client, I think, Barbara Moore.
Yeah, Barbara. What a great gal.
She lives in Maui now with Jeff.
I know.
She was a wonderful employee. But she came in one day with that. And, ignorant me, I didn't know what it was about. I go, Barb, it looks great. What's that about? She said, well, it's Breast Cancer Awareness
Right.
Month.
And she's a survivor of breast cancer.
Big time, yes.
And bless her heart, she's living the life.
Yeah. And I think she probably still, knowing Barbara, she's probably still getting it touched up
I hope so.
in October, right? So, okay, that's great. When I was at Molly's, there would be once in a while we'd get a customer complaint over something or other, and it was up to me to take care of it, right?
Right.
Let's talk about maybe a customer complaint that you may have had to take care of, for example, and we'll go to hair color.
Okay.
The brunette wants to go to blonde, but it turns out red. Or you're working on some lady's hair and she wants a haircut, but it's too short. I mean, I'm sure you've run into things like that. How do you get out of it?
Okay. I will tell you, if a brunette wants to go blonde, it goes orange. It doesn't go red.
Okay.
It's orange. Just think
There's
carrots.
There's no way.
Carrots. Okay. So the first thing you have to do is just own it. I know this isn't what we planned on, but your hair is a little bit darker. What we can do today is we can go ahead and let me add some highlights. It's complimentary. It's going to lighten it up. It'll help to balance that. What I can do then next time is adjust your formula. Just own it. The client is going to see how hard you're trying. She's going to know that you have her best interest at heart, or his.
Yeah.
Right? And then once they see that, they know that you're working hard to make them happy. And plus, Mark, you have a relationship with clients for the most part. And so you get to know them and they understand.
Yeah.
None of us are perfect.
Is there any time during the hair coloring process where you can notice and say, oh boy, this ain't going to work. This is not going to work. I mean, or is it just when it's all done?
I can say that to myself.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have to make a correction instantly on the spot. That's what we call a Hail Mary hair color. And you go into the back room and you stop and think and get your bearings straight. But I will tell you the one thing that's kind of a joke, and primarily I'm known for my color work. And I do everything except extensions. I do everything and I have taught everything, but I am known mostly for color. And the difference, what makes a master colorist is the big question. It's the number of mistakes that you make.
Does you get better?
You learn how to correct it. And so if you have hair that's starting to turn a little bit green or a little bit too ash, which is not always green, sometimes it's a blue-violet or gray that you don't want to have in the hair, do you know how to correct it? If you don't, one of your teammates is going to. And you work in a salon as a team.
Yeah.
Always. And when I work, that's how I am.
Okay, good.
And so...
What about an embarrassing moment?
Oh, my God. Okay. One instance comes to mind. You have to picture my first salon. And, I was...
Your first one, this would be the...
Rachel & Co. at
day spa.
256 Lorton, the day spa. And we were packed on a Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. Everybody's going. The blow dryers are going. We're racing around like a mad place. And we've got customers waiting. They're stacked up. I've got 2 or 3 clients at the time. And... excuse me, my daughter's in the front. She and another little girl are coloring, okay? And Jackie had learned, she was maybe 7 or 8 years old, she had learned some new words at school. And I said, Jackie, tell the girls your new words that you learned. And at the top of her lungs, she screamed out, masturbation.
Oh, good deal.
Every blow dryer stopped. The whole salon went silent. And I wanted to fall through the earth to China.
Yeah.
And stay there. And all I could say was, that wasn't the word. That wasn't the word. I don't even know to this day where she learned it.
Yeah, where did she get that from,
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll silence the place, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sure did.
Yeah. You mentioned that the blow dryers were humming away, right? What's with these hair blow dry salons that are going on today? What's the deal with that?
Well, it's been a great concept. And what it was created...
Why? Can't you just dry your hair at home?
No, because my arms are attached to my body and I don't have eyes on the back of my head.
Okay.
Plus, maybe I've had a hard day at work and I'm going out to dinner for something special. What if I'm working in the middle of a big city? And let's say I'm working up at Union Square and I've had a tough day and I want to go ahead and maybe have my hair done before I'm going to meet my significant other out for dinner. Right? It's an anniversary.
Yeah.
We're going to celebrate. I want to look nice.
Okay, you just can't brush it or comb it out yourself at work or wherever.
Come on. I'm working hard. I want to go and get these gorgeous locks done.
Okay.
But now, here's the thing. It was a great idea. But... you can't sustain a business with just that.
Yeah.
Because you're blowing through clients. And you have to have something to create a relationship to make people come back. So now they're starting to branch out.
They are. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. I happened to see one close by here, and I was just wondering how that happened to work.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. You mentioned it earlier. We're going to get there now. And you're going to have to help me with this. Redken Laboratories.
Redken Laboratories is now a part of L'Oreal.
Okay. Which is hair coloring or hairspray or something to me. Hang on. But you were an educator for that.
I was an educator.
All right. Walk me through it. What's it about?
Well, okay.
And are you still an educator for them?
No.
Okay.
I am no longer an educator for them. But what hair companies do, manufacturers and any kind of cosmetics, like you have guest artists that work for MAC, for example, and they might have a day at the different malls or different MAC stores where they're doing makeup, and they're educating the makeup artists as well as promoting product to customers. Okay. And so I did that for hair color and cutting, but I also taught business building. I taught everything with hair. let's see, what else did I teach? I taught hair color, hair cutting, styling, trends, and business building.
And this was kind of a lifelong dream.
That was also a dream. When I was in beauty school in Hawaii, there was a gal that worked for Redken named Antoinette. I still remember her, what she looks like to this day. And she came in and she was teaching us classes. And because I went to a Redken hair school. And so we did a lot of, had Redken hair products and different things. And I remember thinking, someday I'm going to do that.
Could you have just stayed with being a Redken educator and dropped hairstyling completely, or what?
I could have.
Yeah.
And there are people that I worked with that did and went on, and they, L'Oreal bought Redken, and those artists are in New York teaching at the Redken Hair Academy.
Where did you do your teaching?
I taught in beauty salons and at different venues, like conventions.
How did you get those positions? How did you get those jobs, I guess,
a sales
or appointments?
Consultant would go in and would say to as they were going in and taking orders, they would say, we've got an educator here and I'd like to have her come in or him come in, and you're bringing in the new hair color line. So why don't we have the educator come in, teach your staff how to do it?
And how long would you spend there?
I would spend maybe a day, half a day,
Yeah.
and they could call me back or whatever.
Was this while you were working in Burlingame?
Yes. And I'll tell you, the other thing that we did is when we would have like symposiums or conventions, you go and you have maybe the largest class I taught was 250 people.
Gosh, that's like a conference.
And it was a conference.
Yeah.
And I actually one time was 500.
No
that
kidding.
was a little unnerving.
Yeah.
But, 250 people and you're on a stage and you're showing them different techniques
Was
and
this
trends.
in the Bay Area or California? I mean, was this?
It was all over.
All over,
I was
yeah.
in Chicago. I was in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
I was the most sought after educator from the Bay Area all the way to the Canadian border.
No kidding.
Yeah.
How many years did you do that?
About 5.
Why'd you get away from it?
I had my day spa. And it was either
A lot of things going on.
And I
you
was
had
raising
a daughter.
and I was raising my daughter.
Yeah.
And it was which one is most important to me.
Yeah.
And it was raising my daughter, number one, and number two, having a living and earning a living, creating my business, and being here for her.
Yeah. And taking care of Henry now too.
Well, yeah.
All right. So I mentioned many times you've been a hairstylist for 47 years,
Yes.
right? 40 in Burlingame, of course. But how long has been your most loyal customer? Like you've had somebody for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, anything like that?
Well, I have one client that I've had since 1984, but she now is no longer able to drive. She moved up to Folsom and used to drive down.
Right.
I had a client that moved to Boston or Cape Cod. She would fly out.
She would fly out.
She would fly out. She would call me, see when I was available, and then she'd make her plane reservations.
Wow.
She had a home here.
Yeah.
So she would come out for the week.
Yeah.
But it was contingent on when I was available.
Yeah.
So, my longest term client is probably 35 years, 36,
So you
37.
kind of watched them grow up in a sense.
They've watched me grow up as
They've
well.
watched
We
you
were
grow up
young.
too. Yeah. Oh my God. How do you stay passionate and motivated? How do you, so many years in this, you don't seem to be too bored and you seem to want to keep going.
I'm going to tell you, I am so lucky, Mark, because in 47 years, there has never been a day I did not love my job.
Yeah.
I've not always loved the people, but I've always loved the work.
Right.
And I think that it has given me a lot of mental stimulation, because most people don't know that hair color and hair cutting is based on mathematics and geometry. So it really keeps me stimulated. Seeing all of the new trends and what comes in and meeting so many different people, it's like having a friend come in every 15, 20 minutes. You know that from Molly Stone's.
Absolutely.
And cultivating those relationships. It's not just somebody comes in and gets their hair done.
I look at it as you are kind of an artist, and you see the results of your work as you complete the work for the day, and you look at that and look what I've done.
Well, it's either immediate.
You've made somebody feel good for the most part, right?
Well, it's either immediate gratification or self-abuse, depending on the day.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty great, though, really, I think. So what advice would you give to somebody that wants to get into the hairstyle business, cosmetology, et cetera, et cetera?
2 things. Number 1, find a mentor. I have been mentored by some of the greatest colorists in the world. And I say that absolutely. Leland Hirsch was one of the top colorists in the world. That has changed. He changed our industry. Anita Schertzer was another.
Yeah.
And, this is going way back to, they started out in the early 60s, late 50s. Fabulous, fabulous people, fabulous haircutting mentors. And find a mentor and someone that will encourage you and inspire you.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, stick with it. Consistency. Your hair skills, you want to have your hair skills be top-notch, but it's learning how to work with people. People don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care. Mm-hmm. So the two go hand in hand, and you know that too.
I would imagine coming out of beauty college, is it still called beauty college?
Yeah, or cosmetology school now.
Or say College of San Mateo, where you...
Right.
Is it tough finding a job?
It's very easy.
Full-time?
Full-time. And right now, there is such a shortage of hairstylists.
Right.
It's in another 5 years, 10 years, it's going to be very sad. Because here, in this area, everyone is encouraged to go to college and go into tech, go into business, go into finance, all kinds of things like that. But we don't encourage kids. First of all, college is not for everyone. You can be successful without a college degree. You need to have a career, a profession, but you can be very successful.
Yep.
I've never met a poor plumber.
Yeah,
or a poor electrician.
Yeah.
And as a hairstylist, you can earn a very comfortable living. It's hard work, very rewarding, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
You've got to get out there and work.
You got to make the commitment.
You've got to commit to it.
Today's being very slow because you don't have any clientele yet, and you're just going to work on drop-ins, I guess.
It's very hard, and I always started my assistants they worked on minimum wage plus a commission.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they started working, though, they had to be ready to work on clients from the very first day they walked into the salon. And I didn't care if they made mistakes. They were there to learn.
Yeah.
And the clients knew that. And, they paid a little bit less for training. We have clients that want to be models for haircutting and things like that. So there's a lot of ways to learn and to maximize your opportunity.
As long as you make the commitment.
You have to commit to it. And that's with any profession.
Okay. All right. We're going to go into rapid fire right now.
Okay. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Whatever that means.
Okay.
I stole that from a show.
Okay.
You're now living part-time in Palm Springs. I guess you've been doing that for quite a while now,
I
right?
live 75% time in Palm Springs.
75% of the time,
yes.
25% in Burlingame.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you cut any hair down in Palm Springs? None. That's your time away. That's your rest time.
That is my rest time.
Yeah. Moving to Palm Springs, I heard a rumor, or maybe somebody whispered this in my ear.
Don't mention names.
Somebody by the name of so-and-so from Mervin's Restaurant.
It was a Melvin's Restaurant.
Melvin's.
It was a gentleman from Melvin's Restaurant.
Melvin's. It's okay.
Okay.
That kind of motivated you to move south to the desert?
No. Actually, had that person ever asked me to move, I would have been there in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But, I was going down every 4 to 6 weeks and really enjoying.
Why? Just to go to the desert for warm weather?
To see my friend, to see my gentleman friend.
Okay,
and
good.
my mother was sick at the time, but after she passed, I ended up buying a small condo down there and renting it out.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is a place I could retire.
Right. And you've just about done that.
Semi-retired.
Good for you. Yeah. So how often do you come back to Burlingame?
I'm here every other week.
Every other week for
Yes.
a complete week?
Yes.
But everything's all booked up when you do that, huh? You've got all your appointments lined up and all
Pretty
that?
much. I can always fit, my regular clients in. That's the other part of being consistent.
Yeah. When you're down there in Palm Springs, your old boss, or, the Ruben, you worked for Ruben.
Oh, my goodness,
Do you ever
Ruben.
run into him down there?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I'll have to look him up, though.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, because he's retired now, right?
Very retired.
Mark, fun fact. He cut my hair. He used to cut my hair 50-something years ago, but 3 days before we got married, he cut my hair. So he was a big guy. He worked at Taylor Topper in Millbrae. They made toupees and wigs and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I first met Ruben. Anyway, it's kind of funny. Okay. If you weren't a stylist, right? If you weren't a hairdresser, if you weren't a barber, if you weren't a beautician, what would you be doing today?
I think I would be in tech. I would. No, because here's the interesting thing. What most people don't know about me is that I am a total Apple freak.
Great.
And back in the day when I got my computer and my iPad and my phone, I took every single class that Apple offered.
Yep.
I wanted to go to work for them in the store.
Yeah.
And work like at the Genius Bar.
Yep.
And I guess, maybe because I wanted to be a nurse and then a hairstylist and then the Genius Bar is solving problems.
That's great.
So either I am really crazy for taking on that kind of punishment or, I want to serve humanity.
Great answer. Great answer. All right, one final thing here. How about some shout outs to your family, friends, and colleagues?
Oh, good Lord. I have to tell you, there have been so many colleagues. I mentioned Anita Schertzer. She's since passed. And Leland Hirsch. There are a couple of gals that worked for me, Lisa Morrison and Christina Mafrici, who were just fabulous colorists. And I had the pleasure of bringing them up, through that.
Yeah.
And, my family, Jackie, has been incredibly supportive. My mother was very supportive. And, just the people in the community, Mark.
Right.
I mean, Burlingame is a very special place.
It is a special place. Yeah.
So
we're very fortunate for both of us to have worked here for so long.
Oh, yeah.
And live here. So, yeah. Okay. Rachel and Henry, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
You bet.
It's been a pleasure.
It has been. Thanks, Rachel.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Rachel Groffman and her mini poodle Henry for being my guests today on Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. Thanks to my Minister of Podcasts, Mike Nagler, my Director of Marketing, Adrian Kwok-Lucchese, and original music by Bray. You can hear more of Bray at bray.com. This episode was produced and directed by Mark at the Mic and was recorded at the Burlingame Public Library on Sunday, March 23rd, 2025. The Burlingame Historical Society copyrights this podcast, and no part can be copied and replayed without the written consent of the Burlingame Historical Society. And before I close out, be sure to look for my next episode of a Mark Goes Rogue podcast. My guest will be longtime teacher Gwen Miner. So until next time, everyone, see you around Burlingame. It's a small town.